Hello, let's talk about shadow work. So, if you're new to my channel, my name is Melissa. If you want to know more about what I'm about and the readings that I do, head over to the channel. But let's get deep into that shadow work. I've been waiting a long time to do this video. I had to prepare some things, but I am going to go off of my notes a lot. Without further ado, what is shadow work? So if you're a beginner and you're not really used to this thing, or even if you've like kind of dabbled, by the end of this video, you'll have some very helpful steps to take to kind of get down into why you are the way you are and heal some of that early onset trauma that maybe you weren't aware you had. So if you're struggling with manifestation, if you're struggling with your emotions and processing them, going through some transformations right now, I believe a lot of people are, then this is for you. So what is shadow work? So your shadow are aspects of yourself that you hide. You may consciously hide them from yourself. You may subconsciously be hiding them. It could be things that are locked away that your subconscious is stored for your own safety, because maybe there's traumatic events that were too big for you to handle at the time that they happened, usually in childhood. So children are ill-equipped to deal with major trauma, so a lot of times that gets suppressed. And that's where our shadows kind of really start, for the most part. You can have shadow things from things that have happened, very recently and in your adult life. But for the most part, a lot of the things have been trapped since you were a child. So it's those things that we see as unlovable or unacceptable by society's standards, that kind of stuff. Greed, dark thoughts, having negative associations with things that aren't necessarily negative, and you just don't know why that is. Sometimes you feel like, you know, maybe I'm a little judgy, or maybe people tell you you're judgy and you don't realize it. Those are some things to look into. So, they are often triggered in childhood and they cause coping mechanisms that are, skills that you develop that aren't necessarily healthy, but like I was saying about your subconscious suppressing things, it also goes along with uh, developing things that the only way you knew how to deal with things, like fight or flight, fight, flight, fawn, and freeze. There's so many. I'm not a psychologist. I should have said that in the beginning. I have no background in psychology. This is just from some things that I've done that work, compiled with other things that other people have used. And, some people have gone through therapy and done some of the same type of workings. So, not a professional. If you're struggling really bad and you feel like you can't do this, seek help. Reach out to me, reach out to anyone. But yes, this will help if you're something that you're ready to work on. But I have to say, like, these going back to the coping mechanisms and skills that you developed, they can be undesirable. You start feeling shameful and guilty about everything. It causes limiting beliefs later in life. So, or traits. It's like your childhood is like programming a computer. So there things that you've programmed into yourself, that you don't realize you've done. So that's where your shadow is. But I have to say that every shadow has a light aspect. And this is not something that I hear a lot of, but it's, there's a spectrum where you have your light self, and then your shadow self. And on the other side of that shadow, there is a light aspect that is waiting to be uncovered. Um, it's it could be a talent, it could be something that you've been blocking, that you've been trying to manifest that isn't coming, like, abundance or whatever you've been trying to work on, it's not coming. Could be those shadows that are waiting to be cleared so that that light can show up, so that aspect can show up. So with every shadow there is something on the light end of that. So I just wanted to make sure that's very clear by shining light on these shadows and bringing them into your life and understanding them. You are also bringing a blessing into your life. So yes, let's get into a couple of examples. So shadow blockages kind of trickle into your everyday life. So I made a little chart. It's a handwritten little doodle, but one of the example that I'm going to use, and there's an example in the book which I'm about to show you, is about being too much to handle. So you feel like you're being too much to handle. So this means that you hide interests from your family and friends, which causes you to feel judged. Another thing could be not speaking up at work, where it causes you to let others take credit for your work. You don't ask for the compensation that you deserve, and then eventually ends up making you feel insecure about your finances. Another thing about being, the subconscious program of being too much or being too much to handle, which comes from childhood, not being acknowledged as a child or being told to calm down all the time as a child, that kind of stuff will make you feel that you're too much to handle. So afraid of being yourself in relationships, which causes you to feel fake, like you don't feel like you're being your genuine self. You don't state your desires, whether that's in a relationship, in a partnership, in a business partnership, in the bed. You don't ask for what you want. You don't state your desires. And then you please your partner, but not yourself. So being afraid to be yourself can cause you to, want to take care of somebody else so that you aren't like revealing yourself. So I'm going to show you what I have. That's all the things that I read. But if you flip it, okay, and you start working on these things, you start to clear these blockages, and then you get to a point where you know that you're not too much and you've validated yourself, and it clears up those blockages. So let's get on with the steps that I would take. So I hope that explains some of what shadow work is, what you're doing there, and where it comes from. So one of the exercises, and I'm going to show you, I created some journals, part of why it took so long for me to get this. So this is a journal. It's on Amazon, Embracing My Shadow. It's probably backwards to you. But it is a workbook with prompts, and it basically goes through the steps that I'm about to share with you. So the first kind of exercise, and it's kind of split into two. You can do them back to back. You can do one day and then the other another day, or however it fits into your schedule or works with what your goals are. So you want to tap into how you're physically feeling, how you feel in your body. There's a body map in there for you to kind of pinpoint those things to reference later as you work on or through things. You want to identify an issue or an emotion. Emotions are information. And if you come at it from that perspective, they're valuable information. So you don't have to tie yourself to your emotion. You can recognize the emotion as information. So what you want to do is sit with your body and sit with how you're feeling and go through your body head to toe and write down or mark on the map if you have the journal where you feel things. It doesn't have to be pains, but pains are included. It could be tingling, it could be heat or cold, temperature changes, that kind of stuff. And you want to write all of that down. And then you want to sit with it. You want to feel that area that you're working on. And you want to look at what information it's holding. What information is it trying to give you? And you have to come from a place of curiosity and compassion. You don't want to go into this criticizing yourself, because that's counter to what we want to produce, the results that we want to produce. So typically emotions manifest in physical in your body, and you can look at the physical manifestation of an emotion to evaluate the emotion. So you want to kind of get whatever information you can from that during this exercise. They're usually tied to formative events, childhood, adolescence, and can be recent for some. You want to make sure that you're, again, keeping that separated and looking at it as emotion so that you aren't, or as information so that you don't get kind of engulfed by the emotion. And then it makes it harder to process. So you want to sit with that. You want to evaluate on your body where it is, and then you want to think about it. And definitely do not judge anything that comes up. So you want to kind of think about, is there any memory that is associated with this part of my body? Are there any words that come up, any images that come up, symbols, specific events may come up, and it may not be like an image, or it could be one or the other. It could be a sound or a scent, something that can associate you to a memory of maybe something that happened, where it could be tied to this. You could have a physical injury that happened that you forgot about, and it keeps coming up. You have some pain in your knee, that's not a normal pain, but it keeps happening and nobody can explain why. It could be holding trauma from childhood, an injury that may have happened that you, at that age, your mind could not process, so it locked it away, but it still keeps popping up because it hasn't been dealt with. So you want to look at your physical body and feel into it and see if anything comes up, any words, images, sounds, whatever. And if you don't get anything, you can ask yourself out loud if you need to, hey, self, higher self, whatever you want to call it, what can I learn from this physical manifestation? What is this from? And write anything down, anything you see, whatever. If it's pretty recent, it's possible that that's what it is. But try and go back further and see if there's another incident that maybe happened a little bit earlier. We're looking for a root cause here. So sometimes you could get repeating injuries to that, where the universe is trying to show you, hey, you need to deal with this. You need to deal with this. So then you'll get another injury that's like, hey, remember that one injury? This is not the first time this has happened. We need to look at the first one. So you kind of want to go back as far as you can. And you can do this several times, trying to go back each time if it's not coming. It does take some practice. This may not happen just the first time you sit with yourself, that you go through the whole shebang. It may not happen the first time. You may not get anything, but as long as you keep trying, you'll get more in tune with yourself that way. So that's kind of the physical thing. You want to try and tie any physical issues that you feel that are tied to an emotion, and find any events or things that would have caused an emotion to be kind of trapped. So the next part of that is your inner child discussion. So you want to connect to your inner child. You can do this by visualization. You can, have a picture of yourself when you were a kid and stare at it. You could do it like a more of a meditation where you visualize yourself as a child and, trying to talk to yourself at that time, seeing it as a separate entity. But you want to start a conversation. And a lot of times, if you're highly traumatized as a child, that may not happen very easily. If your inner child is very scared, they may be scared of you as well. So you want to go really slow. And if they don't want to talk, the goal is for them to talk and for you to listen. But you do kind of need to coax yourself out of your shell, your inner child shell. So you could say things like, I just want to talk and see how you've been doing. I know we haven't spoken in a long time, but I want to see if there's anything I can do to help you. And just keep going with that softness. And eventually, you'll get something. It may come in any one of your senses. You may just feel it. You may hear words. You may see images. They may show you memories that you didn't realize you had. A lot of that can happen. But you want to talk to your inner child, but you also want to listen to them. What do they have to say? You can ask them, if you're doing this back to back with the other exercise, with the body exercise, you can ask them about the specific physical thing that you're experiencing, and say, hey, do you know anything about my knee? Do you know anything about our knee or your knee? Did anything happen that you can tell me about so that I can help you with that? You can ask them, but you, again, listen. You are validating, you're giving yourself the validation and the platform that you didn't have at that time. Um, so you want to make sure you're listening. And then you want to go through and assess. And in the book, there's prompts for after you do the exercise or during the exercise. You can write everything down. Does their perception make sense? Does it reveal something? Did you remember it a different way and now you're getting a different version of the memory? Are you getting it from a different perspective? And how do you know, can you see a correlation between any limiting beliefs that you have now and whatever your inner child has shown you? Um, and one thing I must point out when you're talking to your inner child is to never, ever make an excuse for a perpetrator. If there is some kind of physical abuse, something where another person has inflicted either emotional or physical trauma to your inner child, you never want to make an excuse. Don't say, well, they weren't well. You never want to make an excuse. You always want to just have compassion and, things like, I'm so sorry that happened to you. I'm here to protect you now. That will never happen again. We will make sure that that doesn't happen. And you want to be that support that you didn't have at that time. If you had absent parents or addicted parents or alcoholic parents, or just, they just saw you as a chore, and didn't really connect with you, that's what you're reparenting yourself. That's what you want to connect with. You want to have that support to give them that you didn't get when you were them. So you're giving your inner child, a voice. You want to acknowledge any pain, forgive them for not knowing better, forgive them for not knowing how to handle a situation. Forgive them, that all of the feelings that you needed when you were going through whatever it is that they're telling you about, that is what you need to give them, whatever you didn't get at that time. So, I hope I made sense there. So you want to continue having these conversations. And again, in the book, there are follow-up pages. So there's a section where it is, doing the body assessment. And then the next page is analyzing the body assessment. And then you're going to go into the inner child. And there are the prompts to kind of help you remember what happened during the conversation so that you can also look back on it. And then there's a couple spaces after that for follow-up. So if you revisit a specific topic or a specific event, you can write down any more information related to that event. So you kind of have it a little bit organized in there. So you're wrapping up your conversation with your inner child. You want to continue having these conversations. And you can always ask your higher self or your spirit guides to help you. Can you guide these conversations? Can you guide me, give me signs of what I should maybe bring up with the inner child? That kind of stuff. You can ask for guidance as well. But yeah, after you've wrapped up your session with your inner child and you've thanked them for being so strong and getting you to this point, then you've closed the conversation, and now you want to sit with those feelings, just like you sat with your body, doing that body exercise. You want to sit with the feelings and the emotions that now come up that may be tied to those physical issues. So sorry. You want to sit with them, doing the same thing, assessing where does it feel like, where is it coming from, and the emotion that is associated, and the experience or event that happened. And you want to you just want to sit with that, and with a non-judging again, and you want to, feel into it, but now you have a better understanding or a different perspective to see it from. And of course, you're going to be journaling about it. So where you used to avoid these feelings, you are now embracing them. And now you have a way of harnessing that to heal those traumatic events. Okay, so let's see, what else did I want to say about that? Oh, so when you're processing emotions, your energy body kind of digests that and breaks it down for you, just like your body digests food. So you can, when you don't resist them and you allow them to be, your energy body starts to break them down, because your memories and your emotions are energy, and it processes, breaks down, and transmute into something else. That goes back to where I said that your shadow has a light aspect associated with it, and when you work on that shadow, you start to unlock that gift. So that's kind of how that works. So um, that kind of is like the first book that I did, was having all of those processes. But I decided it needed a companion, because I know a lot of us, if you're like a little bit more in tune with your inner self or your inner child, and you've already started this process and you've already done those kinds of things, you're searching and searching for those shadow work prompts, just to prompt journal. So I did a prompt journal as well. That one is integrating my shadow, and literally it's just page after page of different prompts. There are 100 shadow work prompts in that book. So that's what I have for you on shadow work. If you have any questions, sorry, I have a bad habit of popping my knuckles. I should shadow work on that. If you have any questions, please pop them in the comments. If this is something that you're interested in, we'll put the link in the description below. For these journals. There's also several other journals and tarot journals too. But yeah, if that's something you want to see more of, let me know. Make sure you hit subscribe, and give me a thumbs up if this all made sense to you. And if you have questions, if something I said didn't make sense, pop it in the comments. I will see you around. My socials are all in my link tree, which is in the description. So if you want to find me elsewhere, you can. So thank you so much for watching this far. And as always, have a blessed day.